Spider-Man has never become one of the world's most popular superheroes because of his powers. He's become one of the most popular because underneath the mask, he's always felt like one of us. And I think Spider-Man Brand New Day understands that better than most superhero films. Following the events of No Way Home, Peter Parker is living alone in a New York where nobody remembers him. When a mysterious new threat begins possessing people across the city, Spider-Man finds himself drawn into a wider conflict involving the Department of Damage Control. At the same time, Peter begins experiencing unusual physical and mental symptoms of his own. To understand what's happening, he turns to familiar faces including Yelena Belova, Bruce Banner and Frank Castle, while also wrestling with the possibility of reconnecting with MJ. This is also the first time Tom Holland truly feels like an adult Spider-Man. He's no longer the teenager we've watched grow up over the last few films. There's a confidence and maturity to his performance now, but also a vulnerability that makes Peter Parker feel more human than ever. Holland has always balanced humour and emotion well, but here he carries the weight of the story with real conviction. For me though, this isn't really a film about superhero action, it's about the awkward stage in life when you're definitely not a kid anymore, but you haven't quite figured out adulthood either. It's about loneliness, finding new friendships, accepting the life you've been given, and making difficult choices when there isn't an obvious right answer. That's what stayed with me long after the credits rolled. I also loved how grounded New York felt. Rather than another globe-trotting Marvel adventure, this is a much more personal street-level story, and I actually preferred that approach. It reminded me why Spider-Man has always worked best when the city itself feels like a character rather than just another backdrop for world-ending stakes. There's also much more Spider-Man than Peter Parker this time, which makes complete sense because Peter can't simply take the mask off anymore. I actually enjoyed seeing Spider-Man already suited up as scenes began. It gave the film a comic book feel, almost like you'd turn the page or loaded in the next mission of a Spider-Man game. It keeps the pace moving and reinforces that this version of Peter has accepted that Spider-Man is now a much bigger part of who he is. Jon Bernthal is excellent as Frank Castle. Every scene he shares with Tom Holland has real energy, and the chemistry between them is one of the highlights of the film. Spider-Man and the Punisher have completely different outlooks, and watching these personalities bounce off each other is great fun. Bernthal brings the intensity you'd expect, but he also allows those quieter conversations to breathe. Sadie Sink is another standout. She completely commits to the role and brings real emotional weight to her character. Without giving too much away, she makes a significant impact on the story and immediately feels like she belongs in this universe. I'm already interested to see where Marvel takes her next. Florence Pugh only appears briefly, but she makes the most of every minute she's on screen. I also loved one of the film's funniest moments. You've got two British actors, Tom Holland playing a New Yorker and Florence Pugh playing a Russian, sitting together in a bathhouse while Spider-Man is wearing nothing but his boxer shorts and his mask. It's a ridiculous image that you can't help but laugh, and somehow it works perfectly. Visually, the film looks fantastic. Spider-Man has rarely looked better on screen. The swinging sequences have a real sense of speed and freedom, while the action scenes are exciting without ever losing sight of the characters at the heart of the story. Even when the spectacle increases, the film never forgets that we're following a person first and a superhero second. My biggest criticism is that at 2 hours and 26 minutes, the middle section loses momentum. I actually think that's because the film is far more interested in exploring Peter's emotional journey than it is in building the external conflict. That's exactly what gives the story its heart, but it also means that the central threat occasionally lacks the urgency I'd hoped for. I still enjoy a superhero film with a compelling antagonist, and although I appreciated where the film chose to put its focus, I don't think it quite finds the perfect balance between the emotional journey and the external stakes. Because of that, this never quite reaches the level of my favourite Spider-Man film. It's a very good Spider-Man film rather than a great one. Walking out of the cinema, it was hard not to think about just how enduring Spider-Man is. Every screen at my local cinema was showing this film, and every screening was sold out. More than 60 years after his comic book debut, audiences are still turning up because Peter Parker remains one of the most relatable superheroes ever created. And I think that's exactly what Brand New Day understands. Not that simply Spider-Man needs bigger action scenes or higher stakes, but the reason we keep coming back is because underneath the mask, he's still human. We don't just admire Spider-Man, we recognise something of ourselves in Peter Parker. That's what this film gets right, and that's why, despite its flaws, I had a really good time with it. For me, it's 3.5 to 4 stars out of 5. A Movie Short's 3-word verdict: loneliness, acceptance and identity. Thank you for watching Movie Short. Don't forget to subscribe and give this video a like. Until next time, goodbye.